Welcome to chat number 2 with President Abraham Lincoln. And you know, I'm just struck as we sit here together, Mr. President, I've heard stories and read things in history that talked about the newspapers slandering you for your physical appearance. And if you'll forgive me, you really don't look that bad.
Well, they called me a baboon and a giraffe. I was ungainly. Of course, I had some really pitiful clothing in those days, especially the early years.
Was that before the beard or after the
No,
beard?
it was a little girl that had written to me after I won the presidency and said, I think you look a lot better with whiskers.
If you covered up part of your face.
Right. So I met her in New York on the way to my inauguration, and she came up and I kissed her on the head because I really think it made a difference. And you know, I was the first president that wore a beard, and after me, the next whole batch of Republicans, I mean, all wore beards. Of course, most of them had been generals fighting in the Civil War, but anyway. No, I think it made me look a little better.
Well, you were seriously maligned in the press over your appearance.
Well, I was. People could not believe that an ugly man actually had the audacity to think he'd get elected to anything. And in fact, I really didn't expect to get elected to anything either. And I remember the first time I ran, I told him, I said, well, I'm used to disappointment. So if you vote for the other guy, that'd be just fine.
I recall a story about someone who approached you with a pistol, who had been instructed by his father to kill you.
Not necessarily me. His father had said, you've only got one claim to fame, boy, and you're the ugliest human being I have ever seen. So if you ever find anyone uglier than yourself, kill them so you can maintain being best at something.
And your response
And he
was
came
brilliant.
marching up to me with this gun flailing at my head, and he said, I think you're uglier than me, and my pappy told me to kill anybody so I could maintain the title of ugliness. And I pretended to cry, and I mean, he seems kind of serious. So I just went into it and woo-hoo! Of course, then I looked uglier still.
Your response was brilliant.
And I said, if I'm uglier than you, please shoot me, I can't go on. and then I pretended to cry some more. Pretty soon we both cracked up. I saw his lip starting to wiggle, and then he put down the gun, and I felt 100% better. We've been friends ever since.
Well, I think there are a lot of people who haven't had the privilege until now of actually seeing you in person who would disagree that you are an ugly human being. There's a beauty that radiates from you. And tell us what got you inspired to do some of the political things that you've done.
Well, my mother had the Bible, and she believed in me and taught me biblical principles. The story of David and Goliath. Now, he wasn't ugly, but he was pretty small. You know, the story of Samson and Delilah overcoming those kind of problems. Biblical stories of Christ himself and the parables and the Sermon on the Mount and the Lord's Prayer about forgiveness. The sense of justice that just radiates through the Bible got in me early. And then when my mom died and my stepmom, my dad quickly remarried, she was the same way. And encouraged me to read and read and read. I read about George Washington. I read about the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And when I would hear some politician that didn't seem to care about the precious liberty, and there was another thing eating in my craw, and that's slavery. My parents took me to abolition churches from a very wee age, pastors that railed against the injustice of enslavement of other people, created in the image of God as equals. That was my mantra, was we are all created in the image of God, and He gave us our rights, our life, and our liberty. So that was the song singing in my heart for all people.
So you began to construct through your early days a vision of this God of impossibilities.
And justice for all.
Yes.
And justice for all.
And a line you wrote had to come from the lips of our Creator with malice toward none.
And charity for all. Charity is a synonym for love. The Bible is the book of love. The Declaration of Independence is the greatest governmental established love in the history of the world. To respect everybody else's pursuit of happiness, it comes right up to my feet. No matter if they get 10 times richer or if they're 10 times better looking. They can have the pursuit of happiness because God gave it to them. Who am I to covet? Because remember, our freedom, tempered by the Ten Commandments. Liberty, tempered and stilled by a sense of self-control.
Mr. President, you used two words in one of those sentences that we don't hear much today. The word government and God. If you are looking at the political scene of modern days compared to your time, God and government is strikingly different today than it was then.
I believe the greatest president was George Washington. He said government will not long last without the twin pillars of religion and morality. And religion to the founding fathers meant Christianity. Now, he was gracious to the Native Americans and said, when they came and wanted him to teach their children, he said, yes, we'll teach you our ways, but more importantly, we want to teach you the religion of Jesus Christ. This is the father of our country, America's Moses, who led us for 44 years from the wilderness of the French and Indian Wars into nationhood and respectability worldwide because of the magnificence of a place where all people were equal. No kings.
We have so much more to talk about, but we're going to say goodbye for now and hope that you tune in to the next session with my newfound friend, Abraham Lincoln.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon Howie.